I got.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Yongsan Baptist Church English Sunday School on March 13th, 2022. We are definitely praying for all of our members that have either come down with something or have come in contact with someone who has come down with something. As you can hear, I'm battling with some allergies right now, but we're all pushing through for the glory of God. And if you were here last week, then you know that we finished lesson 3 of unit 5 on biblical creationism as we're looking in at the evidence from us, humans, for creation. Specifically, we dealt with the popular question, did humans evolve from ape-like creatures? If you're watching online, you might have missed last week's lesson. It is now updated online with this one, so then you can keep posted there, catching up from last week to this week. This week I want to continue with evidence from us, but I want to introduce another sub-series. We're going to talk about specifically the wonders of the human body. Now that we have gotten through what it means to be human and made in the image of God, and did humans actually evolve from ape-like creatures, we will look at the wonders of the human body. In the next few lessons, I want to draw our attention to just a handful of the countless examples that we can observe of the wonders of the human body. What happened? There. Sorry, I skipped ahead. And it's my hope that considering God's special creation and His remarkable handiwork in us would help us to be more grateful for the miracle of life, and give us more confidence in our faith, and make us more bold proclaimers of the truth to the glory of God. So, looking at the human body, it's remarkable in so many ways. It's simultaneously durable and fragile. And some call it a machine, but no machine that man has ever conceived is nearly as complex as we are. The body is more than a machine, it's a system of systems. It's a fully organic compilation of compensatory mechanisms and fail-safe protocols and just elegant redundancies. And when I talk about a system of systems, the body is made up of these systems, which includes these parts and organs, and we'll get into this in subsequent lessons. But a healthy body, which we're all struggling with lately, right? A healthy body requires more than just specially evolved human parts, right? It can't just be working parts. Somehow they must work together for an optimal performance. Our bodies are made up of around 200 complex types of cells, nearly 80 organs, and over a dozen organ systems. But the enormous complexity becomes even more apparent when we see the intricate relationships between the organ systems, because each organ system plays a role in supporting and maintaining the body. But ultimately, all the systems must work together. For example, the bones in our skeletal system cannot function without the vitamin D that's provided when the skin, that's our integumentary system, absorbs sunlight. And our digestive system, if it did not break down food that we eat and create energy, then no other system could operate at all. The same could be said of the circulatory system that provides oxygen to the tissues and removes carbon dioxide from the body. And of course, the circulatory system could not deliver oxygen to the rest of the body if the respiratory system didn't take in air and convert that oxygen into the blood cells to then let the lungs populate those blood cells, and the heart push those blood cells throughout the body. Hormones secreted by our endocrine system help regulate the action of our kidneys, and the muscles in our legs, or our muscular system, compress veins to return blood to the heart, which is the circulatory system, and on and on and on it goes, right? And the hip bone's connected to the leg bone, and the thigh bone, and the funny bone. But the body is designed, and I say designed because the Bible says we are designed, but the body is designed to maintain a balance, an equilibrium. And that term is called homeostasis. The body already knows what is the safe range of all of these systems, right? And how to respond when those ranges are exceeded one way or the other. Understanding the concept of homeostasis is essential if we want to understand how the body functions. Here's an interesting little graphic. You can probably see it. It'll be in notes in the future, and we'll use this multiple times. This is a simple approach that sort of gives an overall picture of what we're looking at. But the body, the human body, has trillions of cells and multiple types of tissue, organs, and organ systems, as we discussed. The internal environment of our body must be kept in strict ranges for each part to operate correctly. Our bodies are designed with many, many control systems, some of which we will mention and some of which we won't get into, they'll be too deep. But this helps maintain a balance necessary to create stable internal conditions for the body to work correctly. For example, our body temperature. Some of us are what we call warm-natured or cold-natured, but every human body has a range of internal temperature that it must maintain to be healthy. If it gets too low or too high, the body kicks in mechanisms to compensate for that. If the body senses that there is too low or too high of a temperature, the cells cannot work properly and some of them die. So control mechanisms trigger various adjustments such as sweating to cool you down or shivering to try to warm you up to help maintain the correct body temperature. As some already know in this room, the amount of sugar in our blood must be kept within safe limits. Multiple systems play a role in controlling our blood sugar. In the same way, that's actually discussed here in homeostasis, right? The same is true for calcium, potassium, electrolytes, right, in our blood, the volume of fluid in our blood vessels. If you've ever been to a doctor and they give you an infusion with an IV, they're trying to increase your overall blood volume, not by giving you more blood, but just it's to avoid what's called hypovolemic shock. Your body can go into shock if the overall fluid level in your veins is too low. And to avoid shock, they give you more fluids. Then there's a balance with that because too much saline can dilute certain levels in your bloodstream of blood cells, of electrolytes, of lots of things, and if that dilution is too low, then they have to infuse you with blood or plasma or electrolytes or what they call lactated ringers, if you've ever received that, to try to balance it out, because you can't exist with just saline in your blood vessels, right? Okay, but there's a balance there. Also, there's acid and base, right? Acid and alkaline levels of our pH balance in our body that has to be at a certain level. If we're too acidic, the body responds. If it's too basic or alkaline, the body responds. Our bodies are filled with sensors and receptors that can detect all of these changes and react to them. When changes are detected, such as an increase in acidity in the blood or a sudden decrease in the blood glucose level, the information is relayed to a control center that in turn sends signals to various other parts of the body. These signals cause a predetermined battery of tissues and organs to spring into action to correct the problem before undesirable changes cause the body to malfunction. To maintain so many variables with such very narrow ranges, demands a web of complex and precise interacting mechanisms that cannot be explained by chance over no matter how many years you want to throw at it. Millions and millions of years is not fairy dust that makes impossible possible. But you know what does make the impossible possible? God. So, I believe the Bible and all that the Bible says about God's special creation, us, the pinnacle of His creation. The sixth day, He ended creation with man. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, which we'll get into. So homeostasis is very important, and I would challenge you to look into that if that's not a subject that you've studied before. But as we get through the following couple of weeks, some of the things that we're going to look at, this is not an exhaustive list, but some of the things that we will look at include anatomical systems, like I listed there at the beginning, the skeletal, muscular, cardiovascular, respiratory, nervous, digestive, urinary, reproductive, integumentary, endocrine, and lymphatic systems. There are 11. We'll look at key organs and tissues, and by that I mean we'll focus on the brain, we'll focus on the heart, we'll focus on the bones, we'll focus on skin, on muscles, and that funny little word called vestigial organs. If you've never heard that before, that'll be an interesting topic. We'll look at senses and the sensory organs, right? Why do you have 5 senses? What do those mean? And can we trust them? And how do they interact with each other? Things about our nose, our eyes, our ears, our tongue, right? These are very special, not just as an organ, but as that organ relates to the human body as opposed to other bodies. So that's interesting studies there. And then essential processes, I mean like the pain response, the autonomic nerve response, the fight or flight response, sleep as a process. Is it necessary? What is it? What does it do? Emotion, and how we have emotions to affect our responses, and then how much we should or shouldn't respond to that, and what is the purpose of it, and how can either creationism or evolutionism explain emotion. And then I'll focus on blood, and I don't mean to separate it from those other things because it's not organs and tissues and part of this, the cardiovascular system, but there are very, very astute lessons we can learn from our blood that give us great confidence that God knew what he was doing. And we're going to look at how the Bible says that the life of the body is in the blood, right? And commands the Israelites not to eat or drink blood for that reason. We're going to talk about how blood relates to disease and how our bodies respond to disease. And we'll also look at the blood as it relates to race and the concept of, are there races? Is race a thing? And what does it mean relative to the Bible and what we will refer to as a concept of one blood? So, looking very much forward to those topics as we get through the next couple of weeks. I will try to condense this information, make it consumable, and not get as deep into the science as my wife warned me I got with things like geology. We will not repeat the mistake of 3 full lessons on radiopolonium halos, okay? So, as we look into the next couple of weeks about the wonders of the human body, again, you didn't miss anything today. This is an introduction into what's coming. The number of intricate relationships that exist between organ systems in the body is mind-boggling. That's sort of how we want to conclude this thing. Amazingly, many people think that all of these organs and systems and the way that they interact are merely a cosmic accident. And I'm here to tell you, this is not a product of time and chance. There's no way. They that believe that attribute all of this that's going on in you and going on in you and going on in you and going on in here. They contribute all of it to just chemicals banging together over millions of years. You don't get to put a bunch of metal in a blender and wait for a car to pop out. It doesn't work that way. More chaos does not bring about pattern, no matter how much time you give it. Their view is given enough time, anything can happen. Like I said, fairy dust. But as we proceed, it will become more and more apparent that the human body is not just an accident. Nothing this complex can happen by chance. And I'm saying that irrefutably. It is not an opinion. It is not a belief. Nothing this complex can happen by chance. It is mathematically impossible. Okay, we'll talk about that too. But many of the body's systems cannot work unless others are already in place working properly. We saw this when we were studying animals, when we were looking around at the evidence in nature. Irreducible complexity is all around us. That is a term that in creationism we know is one of the 3 basic arguments that evolution does not have an answer for. 1, life from non-life. 2, information as a part of life. That's the second one, because we talked about information in week 1. And then 3 is irreducible complexity. The Bible has an answer for all of those things. How did life come from non-life? Why is information a part of life? And what about irreducible complexity? There is no way that we can get something reduced any farther than a certain point and it still be that thing. But all 3 of those things are answerable by creation and not answerable by evolution. There's no wiggle room for random processes of evolution in the human body, in our existence. There's a design and a purpose to how our body works. Excuse me. And we're going to look that over in the next couple of weeks to see that we are truly fearfully and wonderfully made, as the psalmist said. The human body is a testament not to evolution, not to Darwin, but to the power and majesty of our Creator God. All right. Now we're going to pray, and we'll get on to the next service.